Hey everyone, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to a special episode of Free Plugin Weekly. In this video, I've partnered with Noiz Lab to show you 5 free mastering plugins, and these are actually paired with a free mastering course called the 1-Hour Mastering Workshop by JD Young. So this is a great free way to learn about mastering fundamentals and then get some free plugins as well. And this isn't one of those gimmick things where you type in your credit card for a free trial or make an account or anything like that. You just type in your email and you get a free copy of the plugins and you get access to the free workshop text. And these plugins are multi-purpose. They can be used for mixing as well, not just for mastering. So included in the plugin bundle is the Mizer, an equalizer, a compressor, a convolver, and a limiter. So let's start with the Mizer. This is a stereo imaging plugin that allows you to narrow the low frequencies in your track. So you can narrow the stereo image of just the bass frequencies without affecting the mids and the highs. So something I always do in mastering is I make the bass frequencies more mono. So that means if there's any low frequency side information, I like to push that information into the center. So this will ultimately give you a more focused, tighter bass sound, especially for things like bass guitar and kick drum. So here you can control the low frequency and high frequency. So this essentially sets the range between where you go from full stereo down to mono or fully mono or whatever sort of percentage of mono you want to go to. And then you can also adjust the shape of how this works. So there's a linear shape, there's an S-curve shape, an exponential shape, and a second exponential shape. So typically what I like to do is use the S-curve shape. Then I'll just listen to the track and set my high and low frequency thresholds here, and then I'll adjust the amount of the Mizer here. So this is a rock track, and what I'm really trying to do here is make the bass guitar mostly mono, make the kick drum mostly mono, and even the low end of the rhythm guitars, just the subby low end of the rhythm guitar, not all of it, because I do want some guitar stereo width in the song. So it's a slight change, but with the Mizer on, the low end has a bit more focus in it. And the low end of the guitars actually gets down pretty low. This song is, I think it's in the key of A minor, but the guitars are in drop C. So there's some lower frequencies than standard tuned guitars. So I don't want to make this high frequency too high because then I'll start getting into the first and second and third harmonics of the guitar part. So I really just want to affect the bass guitar and the kick drum in the sub-low frequency range, below around 80 hertz. Another thing you can do is you can turn on this DC filter. So a DC filter, what this does is it corrects DC offset problems in the track. DC offset essentially is an asymmetry problem in the waveform. So this can cause issues with dynamic processing later on. So it's important to correct this when mastering. So I don't like to make the bass completely mono. Sometimes there may be some anti-phase material down there. So when you push anti-phase material 100% together and make it fully mono, you can get some cancellation. But normally your anti-phase material is going to be more in the upper range, in the air and the high mid-range and the high range. Next up, there's an EQ, and this is a 6-band EQ. So by default, you get 4 bands or peaking filters, and then you get 2 shelves, a high and low shelf. You can double click on any of these to reset them. Each band, you can specify normal things like your center frequency, cutoff frequency, gain, bandwidth, but you can also specify the type of band. So for each one of these, you can make this a peaking filter, a low shelf, a high shelf, a high pass filter, or a low pass filter. But you can also make each band affect the entire stereo signal, just the mid channel, so the center information, or the side information. So using an equalizer with mid-side capabilities and mastering is helpful to give your mix a bit of a stereo spread, but in a really natural way, not using like an imager plugin. Here, what you can do is like one thing I like to do is I like to take the high frequencies, like the airy frequencies above about 5 or 6K. I'll boost them up, but I'm not going to boost them up for everything. I'm only going to boost them up for the side channel. So the mid channel won't be affected by this. And you can also solo each channel here. So if you just want to hear the effect on the side channel, you can select side here, or just the effect on the mid channel, you can select it here. So let me go to the stereo first. I'll boost this up, and then I'll toggle between these, and I'll make a few adjustments. So you can see there when I solo the mid channel, no adjustment I make here is affecting the mid channel because this band is only affecting the side channels. So here in the side channel, I'm giving a bit of a high shelf boost just to widen the high frequencies. I'm also widening the sort of low mid frequencies just because I want the guitars to sound a bit wider. So this band is set to side mode. And then I'm giving it a bit of a boost around the 2K range just in the mid channel. And this helps to pull out the vocals, the lead vocal that's in the center. So ultimately in mastering, these tiny adjustments just help add the final gloss to the final product. They're not meant to completely drastically change the tone of the original mix. I'm still keeping with the tone of the original mix. So I'm just kind of giving the mix a final polish, if you will. Okay, next up is the Compressor plugin. This is also a really great track compressor, especially if you're new to using compression. Maybe you're not really familiar with all of the timing elements like the attack and release and auto release and things like that. Some of those things can be confusing if you're a beginner. So this actually makes a pretty good track compressor as well. So you have your threshold here, and this controls the intensity of the compression. So it's sort of like a combined ratio and threshold setting. And then there's 4 different modes: glue, balance, punch, and impact. So you'll find the modes toward the top here are more for sort of smoothing out the overall dynamics, whereas the bottom modes are a bit more transient emphasized or transient heavy. So they let more of the punch of the transients through. So let me just play around with this, and you'll see what I'm talking about with these 4 different modes. So yeah, the glue mode is really soft, really smooth, doesn't accentuate the transients at all. Balance does give a little bit of a transient emphasis, but it's still sort of smoothing out the dynamics overall. Punch gives us a bit of the transient emphasis, and impact gives us the most, but it sort of sacrifices the overall tone of the other instruments. So because this mix, I'm not really hearing any issues with the transients not coming through, I'm going to use glue mode, use a pretty soft setting just to kind of glue everything together a bit. I've always found that a touch of compression in mastering really helps to just push everything together as a cohesive unit. You have to do this in a way that doesn't sacrifice clarity either. There's a gain reduction meter here where you can meter how much compression is actually happening, and then you can also pull in one of these saturation modes for a bit of additional character. I don't want too much, though. I think I'll put this on the soft saturation mode. Yeah, I'm going to go with the glue mode. The punch mode was sounding pretty good, but there was almost a little bit too much transient in there. And then the balance mode was just too pumpy for this style of music. Next up is the Convolver plugin. Now, you might think reverb on a master. Believe it or not, there's been several occasions where I've added just a touch of reverb to a master just to give the track a bit of depth and space. You almost don't even notice it until you solo the effect, which you can do here. This essentially solos the wet signal. So there's 3 different modes here, or tones here. There's a studio, hall, and church. And then you can pull up the amount of each type of reverb here. So these reverbs are actual impulse responses, and you can load the IR in both mono and in stereo if you want a bit more width and openness. Now, if you're worried about one of these sort of, gumming up your low end, you can high pass the signal, and if you're worrying about it oversaturating your high end, you can also low pass the signal. So what I think I'm going to do is add just a touch of either the hall or the church reverb. And this is just going to give a bit more of shimmer to the upper frequencies and give the track a bit more depth as well. And if you work with a mono IR mode, you don't get the stereo width, but you still get sort of the depth of the effect. Here, I think in stereo, I'm starting to hear and notice the reverb. And last up, there's a limiter. So this is a Brickwall limiting plugin that allows you to maximize the loudness of your track. So I'll turn the maximize feature off and roll down the threshold to limit the track. Now, if you hit the maximize button, what this does is it automatically adds makeup gain to push everything up to the maximum possible level. And there's also 3 automatic release times: fast, medium, and slow. So with the fast auto release, the limiter is working a bit too quickly for this type of music, so I don't want it to be too pumping sounding. The slow auto release definitely does a better job of emphasizing the transients, but the material right after the transients is released too slow. It's released from the limiter too slow, so therefore it doesn't have as much heft to it as the fast auto release. So I'm going to just go with the medium auto release. And another way you can affect the transients is to use one of the 4 transients modes. So there's off, soft, medium, and hard. I don't think the transients in this song are having too much of a problem coming through, so I'll set this on the soft mode. Now, I'm finding lately that most streaming platforms want your masters to have a certain loudness range, which varies from platform to platform, but a lot of them, including YouTube and Spotify, will lower the volume of your masters if you don't have some headroom as well. So for example, YouTube and Spotify are asking for 1 dB of headroom. So I used to master to like -0.3, like a -0.3 ceiling, so 0.3 dB of headroom. But that was more for like CD mastering. For streaming purposes, I find myself adding a 1 decibel ceiling to keep masters from getting their volume automatically pulled down on some streaming platforms. So those are 5 free plugins from Noiz Lab. These are perfect if you're just getting into mastering and you want to learn the fundamentals, and they're also great to incorporate into your existing mixing or mastering workflow. If you want to check these out, you can head over to homestudiomastering.com, and if you want to learn even more about mastering, you can purchase the full version of JD Young's home mastering course there as well. The 1-hour mastering workshop is a free 32-page excerpt of this course, where he talks about all of the aspects that I briefly discussed in this video and more. He goes through step by step with each of these plugins and shows you how to master your own music, and all of these techniques can easily be applied to third-party plugins and hardware as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. You can also check me out on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you'd like to make a monthly contribution to the channel, you can check me out at patreon.com/MusicTechHelpGuy. Thanks for the support, and thanks for watching.